Hey, it's Andrew. Welcome to Atomo, Wednesday, March 29th. There's quite a bit of stuff going on. I thought it will kind of die down a little bit with the bank thing going on. And, as we kind of resolve some of the bank problems and getting those to flow through the pipes and become completed, well, many other things are happening. So let's run through a few of them here. So I have right now a bit. Dun, dun, dun. So something called the Restrict Act is coming into play. So just doing a look on Twitter. I took a look at the bill. Here, I'm in Canada here, so not that not saying that because I'm in Canada, it's still an important thing to look at. In Canada, we have something called Bill C-11, and what that was doing is it was providing uh, content curation kind of restrictions. Uh, so, like recommendations and possibly even deeming that maybe some YouTubers or like some organization like Rebel News may not be considered an appropriate journalistic agency. It's basically to protect the big legacy companies in Canada. But the Restrict Act here, the preamble of the bill talks about certain specific countries that they, I guess, call like not friendly to the United States, that may have the technological, like social media things like WeChat, for instance, it comes from China, or TikTok that allegedly comes from China, even though it's a little more nuanced than that. I think the data centers were in China, and that was one of the TikTok CEO or something was testifying and said they didn't have all the systems cut over and behind like some sort of US firewall, that they were open. So this thing comes forward, and a bit of the pieces here is, well, the I guess the government or some entity that is, under the yoke of the government can come in and, well, if you have an alleged, just say I am running a software product, but let's say I built it in the USA. However, I used a plugin or a piece of technology within the plumbing, and this is where it becomes vague. So I do software development, and we don't know at what point they're going to set the level of analysis to say, oh, look, this piece of the code base was actually written by a company in China. And even though we might have purchased the rights to use like a code snippet and we guaranteed that it's safe, it was just, oh, here's some algorithms that were produced by a company in China, and we incorporate those algorithms into our software. It doesn't send the data anywhere. It doesn't do anything. It just helps us to process whatever data is coming in. And even if I keep all my systems within the US, or in my case, Canada, and data is coming in from US sources, it's being housed in US soil on copper that sits, copper, I mean, the computer systems that sit in US soil that has, you know, citizen data, private personal data in it. It's sitting on these systems, but I use components of an algorithm from a Chinese company, even though it's not sending the data anywhere else. It's all still within the box on the soil in the USA. That, oh, well, that could potentially be, well, it's suspect now. especially with people who really don't understand this kind of stuff. So the worry here, what was that? Yeah, the service has to respect a greater 1 million persons in the United States at any point during the year period preceding the date in which the covered transaction is referred to the secretary for review. Oh, so there's going to be like a Stasi snitch line where if they don't like what you're doing, they can submit you for review. And then basically, I guess the commissaires will have to come in and check your stuff, so to speak. Yeah, so go ahead and look up the Restrict Act in Twitter, and you get a lot of information about this. Take a look at the bill. It doesn't take long to read, even though the preamble does set it up that it's foreign actors in the preamble that they're looking to work on this against. But it's always a slippery slope, because at what point do they classify that your particular software, if you're developing it, is actually influenced by foreign entities? So there is that on the Restrict Act. Let's see what else is going on. A couple other things. Oh yes, we got this. So let's switch from talking about Orwellian 1984 stuff to, well, how do we create, if we keep an Orwell 1984 thought on this, how do we create the perpetual wars? Well, we know the USA has been very good with war on all kinds of stuff. War on drugs, war on terror, war on this, war on that, their military industrial complex all the way. So let's run through this. Don't complain to me if this is giving you eye aids, making Janet Yellen big and bold on your screen. Let's listen in.
Climate change, I believe, is an existential threat, and we will leave a world to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren that will become uninhabitable if we don't address climate change. We've let decades pass in which we have understood that this was a problem and not taken meanuful action.
And my time's about up,
essential.
ma'am.
Okay, I'll stop it there. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay. Let's think about this. This person, Janet Yellen, former Federal Reserve chair, was printing money, going to the zero bound. So you're talking about a world being inhabitable. Now, a bit of hyperbole there if you want to look at some of Schellenberger's work. Writer of San Francisco, and he has other books about the climate catastrophe and how it's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt. It's a good something to look into. Like, for example, back a long time ago, before we had lots of electricity, natural gas, we had to go out, cut down trees and get firewood, either make them into charcoal or just burn the wood. And so we're actually seeing an increase, a reforestation. I'm not saying that we completely poo-poo climate change. It's not what I'm getting to here. It's more of what we don't want to see is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and giving full executive power to dipshits like this to basically do the one world government thing and basically tell you what to do. That's essentially what they want, is that full power and control to tell you what to do. And the other element here is with the Ukraine war waning, and the hope here is that we don't send any more money over into that money pit. We saw Silicon Valley Bank get exploded and Signature Bank get exploded, and probably controlled takedowns because there are shenanigans going through those banks, which people like this help to create for you and grift the money, and cut 10% for the big guy, and who knows how many other percents get cut before the actual people who need the money and funds basically get table scraps. So climate change is a big grift. I don't. Okay, you need me to pull receipts. Well, we can do some investigation and find out where some of this money is going. I think he just weighed it out a bit, especially with ESGs, environmental, social, and governance. You see some of these fund companies stepping out of that because they're realizing that really it's not bringing value. If an organization is going to pollute and damage the environment around them, they sustain risk for doing that. So if I'm a company, just say I'm pulling oil out of the ground and I'm tarnishing all the watershed while doing it, then I'm going to get blowback. Communities around there are going to yell and scream. They're not going to be happy about that. And I can enact certain changes to make sure that those companies are working responsibly. And as product gets more difficult to pull in certain areas, either because we're embargoing certain areas around the world, then there's going to be a price change. So if Saudi Arabia and OPEC don't want to produce and we're embargoing Russia and not taking their product, I mean, potentially prices of oil is going to go up. And when the price goes up and it is more profitable for these companies to take the product out of the ground, we can also say, well, if you're going to do that, here are certain environmental protections that you need to abide by. We're not going to say, no, you can take the product out of the ground, but we need to make sure that we're servicing the environment and communities in which we're operating and pulling that product out. So instead of hand wavy and saying this stuff's really bad, it's like, okay, how do we make oil and gas investable again? Because in order to go to a cleaner, that new green version of the economy, we need to be able to sustain ourselves with current levels of capability. So we have the actual money to get to that next level. If we're making ourselves broke ass poor right now, then people are not going to care about climate change if they're trying to find where their next meal is coming from. Because you can't pay for anything. You can't pay for the energy because it got so damn expensive. Because you want to green everything. The green stuff is ineffective. It's not as high density as fossil fuels. Doesn't mean we should not do anything green. Or we should be doing it in a way that the capital and the energy and even to build the green infrastructure is going to cost us in other places of the economy because we have to bring all those parts and materials together, which mean the pollution created to actually build the green infrastructure could be greater than the lifetime value of that infrastructure is going to provide back. Let's go Manhattan Project for fusion. That's what I've always said. And okay. And the last one that I want to show you is there's an article here that I have found. And this is an article from Singapore. And what they get into is, well, they're seeing that, rates of, cancer, for example, is increasing. And so they're changing the way that their insurance works. Instead of having an as charged clause, so as you need to do procedures to help you with your cancer, those will get charged as is to the insurance companies. Hmm. Insurance companies are seeing an increased rate of spiraling costs of cancer treatments, which have been growing at 20% a year. So they're looking to slow the spiraling cost and to obtain better pricing for cancer drugs. So yeah, because cat's out of the bag at how much these pharmaceutical companies push up the price of the product. And they say, well, it's because we have to do all this testing, we have to do all this stuff to to be accepted by in the United States, the FDA, Food and Drug Agency, and potentially we haven't seen anything significant coming out of the last round of, I don't want to say the words too loud on this platform, but you know what I mean, 2020 to 2022, uh, where we were told that a particular medicine was safe and effective. And well, there's evidence to show that perhaps not. Uh, so, what this means is insurance companies are potentially going to bear the cost of the downstream effects of potential damage to people due to these medicines, due to the lack of testing. I would ask here if anybody out here is watching this and you belong to an insurance company, that you demand that you actually put people on your staff to actually investigate the evidence, that the testing evidence that's coming from these medicines, especially when it's a large scale deployment of particular medicines. Then open up the files and check and see, okay, what's the strength of the studies? How were the studies conducted? Are they methodologically intact studies? And if they're not, then potentially, well, can't use that medicine unless we get higher powered studies, and well, I can go into more detailing, so I'll take my analytical mind out of it, just float that for the people in the insurance. um, I've done insurance, not medical, but I've been involved in insurance for quite a while. I understand how this stuff works, and there are things that you can do as an insurance company to help keep your costs low by ensuring that the people who are saying that their stuff's safe and effective, that it truly is safe and effective. Okay, so those are the few things I wanted to put forward for you. Uh, Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you next time.